I am all alone. It's just me. And so when you're all alone, you can do things like, I don't know, maybe this and this. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm not gonna mess up. Sorry, Jay. I think we changed the blue corner, blue corner.
That's the stuff we're talking about.
Blue corner. That's what it is. It's me and you. It's blue corner, blue corner.
Sorry, JP. Sorry, JP. It's the blue corner show today.
This red corner monitor, though, it looks a little out of place, doesn't it? It looks just we gotta do something with this monitor. How about we switch things up a bit with a better photo? Ah, glorious. Glorious. You like that, Jake?
Devin, that is beautiful, baby. It's beautiful.
Oh. Man, first off, my mom sent me a text and she snitched on you guys. She said Devin was over there kicking my couch around. Y'all were just being disrespectful to the red corner while I was gone. And what I'm upset with you, no doubt, but I'm really disappointed in Devin because he's a guest in our home, and this is how he treats the opportunity to be a guest. That's crazy to me.
Look, I'm gonna let you take that up with Devin, but I'm gonna tell you this, JP. When you're national champions, you get to do whatever you want, brother. We were having fun with it because the boys in blue, they brought it home. I keep it professional. I try to, wear my collared shirts, but today's the day. Now that I'm seeing you again, JP, I had to pop this on. But I do have to ask, all the jokes aside, what do you think of how we've redecorated the set?
I don't prefer the decorations, as a matter of fact. I think you guys have done a horrible job, but I get it, though. I've been a champion. Been a champion for about a decade now, so I understand how it feels. You guys are feeling this for the first time in a while, so I understand why maybe you're taking it a little bit too far.
Look, I will say, JP, you've been a professional. You haven't rubbed it in my face all too much that you have a ring. Of course, I don't actually have a ring, but indirectly, my team, my coach, they got a ring, so I've got the chance to celebrate that. But here, I'll give you a chance. I'll give you a chance to bring everything back home, to get the red corner monitor back through what we're calling the Red Corner Challenge. You know we like to compete on this show. So you'll have one trivia question per day, JP.
Boy.
If you get it right, the monitor goes back to normal. Deal?
Okay, sounds like a plan.
All right, cool. There's me shaking your hand. Who did Michigan beat in its first ever Rose Bowl win back in 1902?
Who did Michigan beat?
I can give you a hint.
Okay.
Academic institution, so they value academics. Yeah. Damn. How'd you know that one? I would have never got that in a million years.
Your boy got the trivia on deck. Every time we run trivia on any of these programs, your boy gets it right. Y'all should have picked a different challenge. That's the problem over here. Red Corner still got that championship DNA.
Gosh, I got to give you your flowers, man. I didn't think you'd have that one. I was ready to give you some clues. I guess you didn't even need it. I've been taking it easy on you, bro.
Come on, man.
What's wrong with me? Okay, well, with that in mind, let's do it. This is Red Corner, Blue Corner. It's not Blue Corner, Blue Corner. It's Red Corner, Blue Corner because JP just held it down as he always does. He's JP. He's a national champion. He's a captain at Ohio State. And that makes two of us now, JP.
Yeah, that's my guy, Jake Butt, right there. He's in celebration mode, as he should be. Congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines on a perfect 15-0 season. Jake, I know you were down there on the field. I saw some of your reaction. You might have been a little bit emotional, and you deserve to be because it was a great feat what your team did this year.
It was really beautiful to watch, man. Gosh. It's almost like it's paradoxical. It's bittersweet where it's like, in a sense, call me crazy, like the Rose Bowl celebration felt, I don't know, when I compare the two, like the Rose Bowl almost was as glorious, maybe in some ways more glorious than the national title game. Like maybe they're related somehow. The journey's better than the destination, whatever they say. It's bittersweet because it's come to an end. It's been so much fun watching these guys. So, but I'm glad to have you back, man. It's good to see you. Of course, to our viewers, scan the QR code to send us your content. We're turning this thing up. I know we got a lot of people in the blue corner. You send us our content, your content, Michigan fans. Red Corner, Ohio State, send us your pain, your thoughts, your answers, whatever, and give us a follow on Instagram at @redcorner_blue corner. We're bringing you all in these days, man. We're going to bring you all around town. And JP, of course, there's two sides to every story, and Monday's national championship win didn't just affect Michigan. didn't just affect Washington, but it also had an effect on the Buckeye Nation, who poured it all out on social media, just like we've been asking you to. So let's go through some of these posts, starting with Steven, who said, Ohio State fans, they gotta be sick. Ryan Day inherited a juggernaut. Harbaugh said it was third base in 2019 and couldn't win a natty before Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. JB, you want to react to that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with the idea of what Ryan Day was handed. And quite frankly, you go back to Jim Harbaugh, where he said we're going to get it done or die trying. And he elevated his program. Ryan Day certainly has maintained where Ohio State was, especially where he took over. People talk about Urban and his championship, but there were a lot of New Year's Six bowl games there, especially toward the end of his tenure. Has not necessarily elevated it, though, and that's bothering a lot of people because they watch what happened up north.
That's a great point, man. It's these subtle things. He's been good. But we are about elevating. Coach Harbaugh, steal another phrase. He used to say, better today than yesterday, better tomorrow than today. It's all about progress. All right, let's check out Nico here. Another Buckeye. He said, this has to be one of the worst days in Ohio State history, considering how close they came to preventing all of this in the Big House. Man, it kind of goes back to what you're saying, right? I mean, Ohio State, look at where we're at, the narrative, and yet they really were that close in the Big House, JP.
Yeah, I thought about how Ohio State fans would feel about the national championship for Michigan, because a lot of people feel like they could have prevented the monster from the way that it was built. And I think specifically how close Ohio State was on the road this past year, people were like, I mean, you get that win up there, and Michigan's not getting in as a one-loss team. At the same time, we got to be frank about this. Michigan was the better team all year long. And so now you just got to work to improve on that.
It's a great point, man. I mean, that's the one thing really at this point. And we can debate about a lot of things. You can debate about, the sign stealing. You could debate whether Harbaugh's punishment was fair or not, whatever. But I cannot understand. There cannot be a debate, in my opinion, about who's the best team in college football this year. You cannot debate. They dismantled Washington. The defense played absolutely lights out. To hold that offense to 13 points and to beat up Penix the way they did when he'd only been sacked 10 times all year prior to that. For Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards to have the day they did, and for J.J. McCarthy, maybe, again, not the sexy stats, but we can find out about the team because of his humility in those moments. It was truly, truly amazing. How about this comment, though? Let's go to Dallas. Ohio State was really a top 4 team in the country with the Syracuse-level quarterback. Ooh, JP.
Yeah, I've got 2 responses to that. That's crazy because I think it's true. Quarterback play certainly has to level up, and Ohio State's got replacements there on the way. But one of the feelings that I had after watching the college football playoff in its entirety, I think Ohio State was the best team that Michigan played this year. And I know that there's a nasty taste that's left in Ohio State fans' mouths, and maybe nationally the narrative's coming out of the Cotton Bowl because of the way that they looked. But it felt like Ohio State played Michigan in a way that Alabama tried to, but it was still a lot more sloppy for Alabama. They relied on Michigan to make some really uncharacteristic mistakes. Like the margins, and me and you talked about this yesterday over text. When you are trying to become a champion, you operate solely in the margins, and that is the hardest place to operate because they're so narrow, trying to figure out if you're going to be on the right side or the wrong side of it. In Ohio State the last couple of years, the wrong side of the margins, they got to figure out how to get to the other side.
Well, maybe a way to get to the other side is by adding more talent, huh? How about let's go to Junkin's tweet. Speaking of Ohio State, they picked up a commitment there, JP, from running back Quinton Junkins. I just butchered that one. The thing is, though, he posted his announcement right as the national championship game went final. What do you think about the timing of this tweet, JP?
He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing when he dropped this tweet. I love it. I love the almost petty nature of it. I love how it gave Ohio State fans something positive to talk about as well on a night when they were all going to be miserable. And I think this guy is a super impact player. I have watched clips of him shake dudes out of their shoes in the hole. He is explosive. And I've talked about TreVeyon Henderson, and from people I've talked to, 90% he's coming back. He might not be back, but they feel really confident about TreVeyon Henderson being back. So think about this 1-2 punch. And Judkins might be a better back than TreVeyon. And we've watched TreVeyon when he's healthy. it could be the best running back room in the country. They're going to need to get the offensive line much better. I think that is a given. But we also saw Travion Henderson make a lot of plays behind an offensive line that wasn't necessarily giving him a ton of space. I think this is a huge move for Ohio State. And now they've got to continue to build with some of the momentum. But great troll job here because he knew exactly what he was doing when he dropped that tweet.
I completely agree. Listen, the talent is undeniable, and what he brings immediately, he raises the ceiling. I mean, it's a little bit shocked even to know that he was going to be transferring out, right? That was a shocking statement, and yet now he's going to Ohio State. And the timing to me is the key because, sure, it's a troll job, whatever, but how about J.J. McCarthy's tweet a few years ago? You know, when Michigan was at its lowest point, and as a young recruit, a teenager, he made a promise. He made a promise that he was going to work hard, not about results, but that he was going to work hard to bring Michigan back to glory. He was going to do everything he could. And the timing of that tweet was impeccable. The timing of this tweet, too, shows I think he understands the nature of the rivalry, right? Sure, it's a troll job. That's the nature of this rivalry. You talk about bringing positive news to a fan base that needed it. I think that they're going to be really encouraged by that besides his talent. But at this point, Ohio State cannot have enough talent. They're adding more talent to their roster. But to your point, it's going to take more than talent to turn this thing around. In fact, I actually think the biggest the talent's right there. I mean, right. You're talking percentage points you're chasing to increase talent. There's another piece of this, another element, the mental side that they need to focus on. And the timing of this tweet tells me that Judkins is understanding of the rivalry and wants to bring that fire to the locker room.
Right, and there are changes coming in Columbus, too, and we saw Perry Eliano was let go on the defensive side of the ball. I think that there is some momentum that they might elevate James Laurinaitis, who's a guy who played in the rivalry, had a ton of success, is one of the best linebackers in college football. Some changes expected on offense as well. And so, yes, I think that they're trying to reimagine the program and the mentality as it goes. Also, this is an indication, getting Judkins out of the portal, about where the NIL is at Ohio State, too, and we might have to thank Michigan for sparking off some of those donations that came there. But we're going to take a break right here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. You heard Jake mention J.J. McCarthy, the championship quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines, led them to their 10th title. But where does he rank among that program's all-time greats? We're going to discuss that and more when we return right here on RCBC. we're back on Red Corner, Blue Corner, and we got to talk about J.J. McCarthy because he did just enough to help lead the Wolverines to their 10th national championship. But Jim Harbaugh went as far as to call J.J. McCarthy the greatest quarterback in program history. Now, Jake, I want to open the floor up to you to answer this question, and I'll give my take on it. Are you buying into the claim that J.J. McCarthy is the greatest quarterback in the history of Michigan football?
Yes, I am. And just real quick, because it amazes me I have to say this, but I do know I have to say this. I'm not comparing JJ to Tom Brady. We're talking about the guys that wore the winged helmet in Ann Arbor. Tom Brady's the greatest.
Right.
But in terms of guys to wear the winged helmet college career for the University of Michigan, JJ McCarthy is the greatest. It has never been more challenging to win. I know Brian Griese led that team to a 1997 national championship. He certainly deserves his flowers. There's been some great ones to come through, but it's never been harder to win. That 97 championship was split. This one was not split. You think about his career as a starter. Seriously, one of the highest winning percentages of all time. I think in recent history, he is the highest, not just at Michigan, across all of college football. And I understand the stats may not jump off the screen, but to me, I think the irony in that is the stats not jumping off the screen is what makes him so special, because he's extremely selfless. Michigan didn't just need stats. They needed a leader. They needed a stable general to guide their army, and that's J.J. McCarthy. We found out in that Penn State game when they ran the ball 30 straight times, it was J.J. McCarthy's idea. He went over to Sharon Moore and said, "Coach, run it, run it. They can't stop us." That, to me, is a true leader. That, to me, is the definition of greatness. And every time you've needed JJ to step up, when you've needed him most, he's executed. To me, I almost don't even think it's close, JP. But to lead your team to a 15-0, 15-0, that's an NFL schedule. 15-0, remarkable. Greatest to ever do it.
Yeah, it's hard for me to argue with. And I know people are trying to do the whole stats thing, but I think you bring up a very important aspect to the college game is I think your quarterback has to have the DNA of a winner. And that's what JJ has displayed his whole time in Ann Arbor. He has always been cool and calm and collected, and he has always deflected praise and given it to his teammates. He is a guy who has always had the right mentality and the right attitude for that program. And ultimately, he's made key plays when necessary. You're backed up in a third down, and you know if you hold that football, bad things can happen. So let me just pull it down and run the ball for 30 yards. And I made the argument that one of the biggest plays that he made in the Rose Bowl was when it was a third down, I believe, and he converted it for a first down. What he does in a timely way, I think, is more important sometimes than the aggregate of the numbers for J.J. McCarthy. So certainly appreciate the way that he's played. And the question is, have we seen the last game for J.J. McCarthy as a Michigan Wolverine? Do you believe that he should come back to college?
Okay, so we can separate what I think he should do and what I think he will do. Should he come back? I think he should. I think he should for a few reasons. One, I think that he has progressed. I don't think he's hit his ceiling yet as a quarterback. And I understand you can go to the NFL and continue to progress. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think he will progress whether he's at Michigan or at the next level, regardless. But I do think that this is a historically deep quarterback class. I think if he comes back next year and solidifies and leads his team to a further great season, 1-loss, 2-loss season against excellent competition with the expanding Big Ten, I do think that will further cement his case to be a first rounder. I know there's some guys out there that think he could be a first rounder. I think he's right there on the fringe. It probably depends on other factors. But if he comes back next year and progresses the way he did year over year throughout his career, I think he's a first-round pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't have him as a first-rounder right now, and it's not a knock on him. Obviously, I just mentioned every reason why.
Do you think he could be?
He could be, and I think teams would look at the ceiling that you talked about. But and I'm not trying to take away from anything. I talked about all the reasons why he's a great winner. But I think that the way that Michigan has played games, and part of it's stylistically, but I also think part of it's JJ, is in some really big moments, they have taken the game away from his arm. And the NFL is a league where you pass. And so I think I would just want the reassurance that game on the line, it's time to put it on his arm. Maybe you're down by 14, you're down by 10, and you need to get a couple of quick drives in there. Is he the guy who's going to do that? And it's not to say that he can't. It's just to say that we haven't seen it a ton. And that's something he can prove next year. Now, real quick before we get out of here, we got to talk about some breaking news. Pat Forty out here tweeting that Ohio State special teams coordinator Parker Fleming is out. Safeties coach Perry Eliano is out as well. It was one of the things that I talked about. And the special teams coordinator move is an interesting one because I think that they could use that for another position coach instead of a new special teams coordinator. So be on the lookout there. But what are your thoughts when it comes to Ohio State making moves there?
Just real briefly, man, 3 words: had to happen. I get it, man. I never wish on someone's I understand. We've talked about this with Brian Ferentz. I never wished this for somebody, but it certainly had to happen. And if I was Ohio State fans, Buckeye fans, I would be glad that people are getting uncomfortable in that building right now. Got to elevate the ceiling, got to elevate the floor.
It's the only way this offseason can go is everybody's uncomfortable all the time. And then they make a decision about where they want to be. And I don't think it has to be like that forever, but I think for this offseason, it certainly should be like that. But we're going to take one final break right here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. And coming up, it's time for the conference clash. We're going to take look back at the 4-team playoff era and decide who was the best of them all. That's all around the corner on the other side of this break. All right, we're back on Red Corner, Blue Corner. Time for a little conference clash. And we got to bring in our guys. We got SEC Mike, we got T-Bob Hebert, and we got Jake Butt joining us too, trying to get his body recovered up. But fellas, how's everybody feeling right now?
Feel great, man. Heading in the off season. Today's kind of like, smoke after sex day. So just kind of relaxing, thinking about college football, laying in the bed, looking forward. So looking forward to next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm turning the page to 2024. The Big Ten's not champions in my mind. There is no champion of 2024 just yet.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at you.
I hate to say it.
It's a very interesting take. All right. Let's talk about champions here because Michigan, perfect 15-0, wins the college football playoff this season. We've had a handful of undefeated CFP-era champs. You can also see some of the other teams up there. And I think it's always a unique question to kind of look at champs year by year and parse out who we think is some of the best teams. So if you had to build your bracket of 4 off of the CFP champs here, who would be your 4 top teams?
Ooh, I think this is pretty obvious. Okay, obviously 19 LSU.
Yep.
Goated. I got 2022 and 2023 Michigan right behind that. And then begrudgingly edging out 2018 Clemson, I got 2020 Bama. I'm kind of a believer that the COVID year is an asterisk year, but that was still an overwhelming Alabama team.
Yeah. SEC Mike, where are you at on this?
Yeah, I'm not sucking up to T-Bob at all, but I think 2019 LSU, I think that's the best college team ever assembled. So they're right there for me. I think 21 Georgia, I think that was the better of the 2 champions. I would even give it to 2016 Clemson because I thought that was the best defense Nick Saban ever assembled, yet Deshaun Watson and company got it done in 2016. And then, hey, I'll give you a heads up here. I think 2014 Ohio State winning it all with a 3rd-string quarterback goes to show just how incredible that team was.
I think there are a lot of parallels for me between the 14 Ohio State team and this Michigan team that actually won it because the adversity obviously popped up in different ways there, but I think that there were guys that were motivated to come back to win something substantial. It was more of a team effort than necessarily having just a few standouts, and I think that was important there. But I'm with you guys. I like the 19 LSU team. Certainly love the 2020 Alabama team. I like the 18 Clemson squad there. And then I'm kind of with you, T-Bob, on the 21 Georgia, although I do think 22 was really good. Michigan's right up there for me, though, because I think it was a unique combination of scheme, a unique combination of talent and development. And then you got to add in, of course, the veteran nature of that team. It's really hard to beat.
Yeah, Michigan's got to be in the Final Four. What's going on, y'all? Welcome down from Red Corner, Blue Corner. The conference continues into rivals down south. Hope everyone's having a great day. I think you got to have Michigan in that Final Four. I mean, they've lost 1 game in 2 years. Like, if you look at y'all just put me on a great Twitter account like 30 seconds before we started the segment, Stats of War, and you go on there, and 2022 Michigan is like one of the best 6 teams that we've seen over like the last decade in terms of S&P Plus as well. So, no, this Michigan program, do not underrate them because they may not have some of the recruiting prowess of some of these other schools. They belong to be amongst the greatest champions. I mean, you tell me, Jake. I don't know.
Yeah, I do not care about recruiting. I don't care. That's speculation to me. I mean, shoot, I played with 5 stars that certainly didn't live up to the hype. I played with 3 stars that exceeded every expectation. So generally, I'm with you guys. The 19 LSU team's up there, 21 Georgia's there. That 2014 Ohio State team was loaded. I think at one point they had the highest paid running back, the highest paid receiver, the highest paid pass rush. Edge guy, highest paid cornerback, absolutely loaded. So they're there. And then this Michigan team this year, I really think in time too, they're going to age like fine wine. I think as these guys develop in the NFL, we'll say, wow, this current Michigan roster was loaded.
Jake, they lost to Virginia Tech on the road. 14 Ohio State did.
Oh no, we
I mean,
lost.
what are we supposed
We
to
lost
do?
that. We lost to Virginia Tech.
loaded.
We lost to Virginia Tech at
They
home.
lost to
No.
Virginia Tech at home. What are we talking
Yeah. I mean, it was bad. It didn't start off great, but by the time we ended it, though, just to bring some clarity, and by the end of the year, we won the conference championship, 59-0. They had a Heisman finalist running back. We beat Alabama in the heart of the South. They had a Heisman finalist at wide receiver, and then we beat the Heisman Trophy winner in the national title game. So by the end of the year, we were playing some really good ball. Let's give credit where credit's due.
My man stays with his knife sharpened. We had a comment in the chat saying 18 Clemson and it's from Nolan Hawley that 18 Clemson and 2020 Bama would beat 23 Michigan 6 ways till Sunday. I just do not understand this distinct lack of respect. That 23 Michigan defense is the only defense that could hang with 2020 Bama's offense. What do you got, Jake?
I've heard this.
Yeah.
I've literally it's the same thing I've heard time and time again. They held Washington, who also in time, those receivers, Rome Odunze, Michael Penix, they held them to 13 points. They shut them down. You know, I heard Alabama, you want to talk about growth? This is a new team than the one that lost to Texas. They dominated Georgia. Michigan really dominated them for 4 quarters in overtime. I know it was a closer game. They dominated them. It's Michigan team. I don't want to hear that anymore. I'm tired of these guys speculating and disrespecting them. Actually, keep it coming because maybe they'll repeat next year from the disrespect.
You know, it's one of the things that we do, though, and I think it's hard to have this conversation because stylistically, Michigan is such a different way of winning. And you look at Penn State where they ran it 32 straight times, and people are like, oh, my God, they can't throw the ball. And that was a game that was a little bit more than just one possession, but it was a closer game. And then you look at Ohio State, and that was a 6-point win at home. And people are like, yeah, you know, it's a little bit of a flawed Ohio State team, don't know what they can do. They go to play Bama, and then we're talking about how that game was probably closer than necessary. It was a 1-score game with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter in the national title. And so I think people look at those inputs, and they're like, oh, this Michigan team is a little bit suspect, even though, to your point, T-Bob, they've lost 1 game in 2 years. They are 40-3 over the last 3 seasons, I believe, and they just went 15-0. And so I think we have to digest to ourselves that the style ain't the way that everybody else does it, but they are dominant.
Well, and the advanced metrics support 23 Michigan. It's just the traditional scoreboard, but the reason it's close by design. Like it's close to your point because the style that they play. Do you know how hard it is to beat a team of Penn State's caliber throwing the ball 8 times? Yeah. Like it is significantly harder to beat a top 10 team only running it in the second half. It's
that
like
was the number one run defense.
Challenge.
The number one run defense in the country coming into that game. Penn State had the best run defense in the country coming in.
Like it's actually absurd
without their head
that
coach.
you could be able to do that. Yes, without their head coach.
Yeah,
So,
the slander is kind of crazy to me.
We got to put some respect to 23 Michigan.
Yeah,
even Mike, surely Mike, even you, SEC Mike can agree with this.
Oh, absolutely, because I like to give Jake a hard time, but anybody that beats Alabama has a special place in my heart, and that's where I was going to go with that graph real quick. There's 10 national champions there. They're either Alabama or they beat Alabama, and again, I'm no Alabama homer, but that speaks to just the dynasty that Nick Saban has. You have to beat Alabama, and until you beat Alabama, I don't think you're national champion, if that makes sense.
Well, it does, and the numbers support it. And, we're going to talk Alabama here in a second. Joshua, Jake, thank you all so much. Get the hell out of here. It's now time for some rivals down south and some news concerning Alabama as you see the stats there. Alabama running back Jason McClellan officially announcing he will be entering the NFL draft. He did not have a 1,000-yard season, maybe not the overwhelming season that we're used to seeing out of Alabama running backs. Roydell Williams, another running back, hit the portal earlier. They'll return Jam Miller, Justin Haynes. They've got a couple of top 300 prospects doing it because, of course, they do. Are you concerned right now, SEC Mike, with Alabama's running back room?
I don't think I am, and for the main reason that they still have Jalen Milroe. And we know what a weapon he is on the ground. I think he can – I'm not going to call him Jaden Daniels of this season next year, but if he takes that leap, leads Alabama in rushing, I still think they could have a heck of a year. And to your point, McClellan got banged up. He missed a lot of time. They still won the SEC championship. Keep your eye on Justice Haynes. He was a true freshman this year from Georgia, Kirby wanted him desperately. I think he's your next star running back at Alabama. And the fact that Georgia had to go into the portal to get a running back because they missed Justice Haynes in the recruiting. I think Alabama's going to be just fine.
I mean, you know why I'm not worried about it? Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Robinson Jr., Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, TJ Yeldon, Eddie Lacy, Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram. Like, what are we talking about? This, and granted, you see a little bit of slippage there, right? Where the running back used to be the feature. And so that was like your run of Heisman's. But those are great running backs, one and all, that were awesome in college, gone on to be awesome in the NFL. Yeah, no, Alabama's going to be fine at running back. But look, in addition to McClellan, you got J.C. Latham, you got wide receiver Jermaine Burton out there, Guabi, Dallas Turner, Chris Brazzell, Khalil McKinstry, Terry Arnold, a bunch of guys that could have returned, announced they are turning pro. That's 8 players right there, Mike. Surely this should cast some doubt upon the Tide next season.
Well, in Alabama and Georgia, they're in a unique position, T-Bob, where I honestly think they got some guys, and I'm not throwing Jace into this mix necessarily, but I think he could fit into it to where you go pro because the next generation is better than you and may unseat you, may take your carries. So your stock for the NFL may never be higher. You mentioned some of the linemen leaving to go pro as well. Who knows, the offensive line, which was in shambles at points in time, are they going to be any better? So this could certainly be a case where some guys are cashing in while their NFL stock is as high as it's ever going to be.
Yeah, look, I think I said before the year that if Nick Saban pulled it off this time, losing Will Anderson, Bryce Young, and still managing to have success, and all the question marks that they have, not even having a quarterback, 17-3 against South Florida, all that stuff. I said if he somehow figures it out, I will never doubt him again. Well, I'm just going to stick by my word, right? Like, no, Nick Saban will be as championship relevant as anyone in the country until he decides to hang it up. I don't care about player turnover. They have more players to choose from than anybody else in the country. Nolan Hawley says, counterpoint, talking to Mike here, if your source of optimism is your running back room is a QB, you should be worried about your running back room. That's not a, that's fair. But again, they just throw overwhelming talent at the wall at that position, and someone always emerges. So, like Mike told you, maybe that is Justin Haynes. Maybe Jam Miller surprised. Maybe it's one of the high school guys coming in. But you just look at the lineage, Alabama's going to be just fine at that position. And it kind of reminds me of another position in another school, and that is, quarterbacks under Lincoln Riley. And USC and both Georgia found themselves in the news as UNLV transfer quarterback Jaden Rashada, a day after committing to Georgia, ends up flipping to USC. Mike, what do you think? Was this the right move for Jaden?
Yeah, this fascinated me, T-Bob, because on many levels, I mean, we're talking the Mountain West freshman of the year. And starting quarterback, UNLV had a record-setting season on the field. Then all of a sudden their quarterback jumps in the portal and goes to a place where Carson Beck is firmly entrenched as a Heisman front runner next season, preseason number 1. I mean, he had no shot at seeing the field, but it's interesting because Lincoln Riley's always going to have some touted quarterback. Maybe he sees something here. Maybe this is his next quarterback. I know the current quarterback they have just broke the record for the Holiday Bowl, most touchdowns thrown. So just very interesting that Southern Cal and Georgia are basically treating UNLV like a farm system. But I don't know. I guess if you're asking me which program's going to have a better job developing a quarterback, it's really Lincoln Riley is what I'm looking at.
Yes.
And all his run of Heismans and number 1 picks. I think it's an easy decision.
No, I was about to say, Mike, the bigger question is not, was it right to go from Georgia to USC? The bigger question was, why was it ever Georgia over USC? I mean, what you alluded to, you go to Georgia, you got to sit behind Beck, then you got to beat out Gunnar Stockton, who's been there. And they're going to bring in some more elite talent. You go to USC, you got to beat out Miller Moss. And yeah, Moss threw for 6 tuds in the bowl game, but if you watch the bowl game, the touchdowns were they were interesting. They were a little floaty. It was very much like, F it, I'm going to throw this ball. Let's see what happens. And credit to him. You got to have a bit of that as a quarterback. But no, like Lincoln Riley has proven time and time again, he'll create elite quarterback play. But I was from Hawaii right? That culture fits in way more in Los Angeles than it does Athens. This makes all the sense in the world. And yeah, Lincoln Riley may have found his answer at quarterback. At least now he has two guys competing for that job that can play on this level. So one of them should stick. All right, coming up next here, the Florida Gators making a surprising hire. They may tell you a bit about Hugh Freeze. Plus, who has the toughest road in the SEC next year? Wait until you see the data that SEC Mike put together. What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Rivals Down South. YouTube.com/WatchStadium if you want to get involved, or you can always submit your videos to WatchStadium.com/submit. So look at this. Our own SEC Mike has crunched the numbers like some sort of NSA data analyst. He's looked at all the records of the combined opponents for each SEC team next year, and what it spit out is awesome for some teams, perplexing for others, interesting for some, absolutely terrifying if you are a Florida Gator fan. Now, I know we've touched on this, right? But it's one thing about thinking something looks hard and then seeing the actual numbers behind it. The Florida Gators combined record of opponent next season, 106-50. And to give you some context on how big the gap is, you're 9.5 games back to get to second place, Alabama at 97-58. A 9.5 game gap. Mike, that gap is almost as large or as Alabama to like the last place team. So like Florida's schedule isn't just hard, it is outlier hard. Florida is Piper Perry. It's only a matter of time, I feel. I mean, it just gets worse and worse for Black Spot Billy here, Mike.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers to Billy Napier and his future there in Gainesville. When I saw this, I mean, I triple-checked the numbers just to make sure this outlier. I mean, their schedule is essentially twice as hard as Missouri's. And we know Missouri's riding high right now, looking at an 11-game season, 11 wins this season, and they're looking for more of that next year. Meanwhile, Florida, we're just desperate to try to reach a bowl game. I have some of their fans, C-Bob, ask me if they can make the playoff in this expanded field. I mean, good luck. I mean, good luck getting to 5 wins with this gauntlet that the Florida Gators have next year. They finally, after about 40 years, started scheduling non-conference teams from out of state, tough games, and they've done it at the worst possible time.
Well, and which makes this latest little tidbit of news even odder. Auburn defensive coordinator Ron Roberts leaves Auburn, goes to be executive head coach and co-defensive coordinator now at Florida. And it kind of informs two things. First off, Ron, what are you doing? I mean, you are jumping on a sinking ship here. Secondly, are there problems on the plains right now, Mike? Like, why in the world? Like, Hugh Freeze here after year one, in which almost made it all worth it with Alabama, but don't in the end replacing both coordinators.
Right, fired the offensive coordinator Philip Montgomery late last week. Now Hugh has taken over play calling on offense, and then this Ron Roberts. I don't know if you saw it, T-Bob, but he tweeted out, just what the 10 signs of dysfunction in an organization. He deleted it quickly, but the internet saw it, and now he's off to Florida. But you're going to coach for a dead man walking, taking a demotion at a less stable program. I don't know what that says about Auburn, but it can't be good, T-Bot. I think maybe people bought into the hype that Liberty got red hot, beat Arkansas in Fayetteville. Arkansas has been a train wreck ever since that happened. So maybe the shine is off that win itself. And Hugh Freeze got some real tough questions, I think, coming his way this offseason on the Plains.
And speaking of tough, Alabama's got a real tough schedule, man. Second hardest in the SEC. You love to see it. The problem is, Mike, if they make it through this, you are going to be talking about a battle-tested Alabama. And remember, given that they played your Tennessee Volunteers yearly, they've had a relatively easy time of it over the past 15 years. Like, they are not used to ranking this high in this metric. Still, I think Nick Saban and company will be fine here.
Right. Well, there's a reason Nick Saban got mad when they proposed 9-game schedule came out and they had to play LSU at Tennessee. Now that Tennessee is on the rise and Nico's a future star of the sport, T-Bob. But yeah, no escaping it. Got to play Oklahoma. Got to play Georgia. This is a rare year. Alabama catches Georgia. So they are not going to go undefeated. Certainly, I don't think. But to your point, they'll make the 12-team field. They'll be battle tested. They may be better off for it.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. Other big takeaways here: Oklahoma getting shafted over Texas. Oklahoma, first year in the conference, you got all kind of question marks at quarterback, at offensive line. Well, here's the 4th hardest schedule of the conference. Texas, welcome back. The prodigal son returns. Where you been? We love it. You know what? 5th easiest schedule for you. Hook 'em. Let's go. Boomer Sooner, get the hell out of here. Mike, I know you got to like this. Iamaliava, fresh off a little 36-0 domination in the bowl game there. The Tennessee Volunteers getting the 2nd easiest schedule in the SEC. And I chose Tennessee today, Mike, as my dark horse to make the playoff. How about that?
Ooh, yeah, I love to hear it. And after years and years of just being crushed by Georgia, Bama, Florida, we should have done away with divisions years ago, T-Bob. Open this thing up for them Vols. But it's not just Tennessee. It's Missouri I've referenced. They have far and away the easiest schedule. You got Ole Miss at the 3rd easiest schedule. That's just going to further this hype train for the Ole Miss Rebels, the Missouri Tigers, Tennessee Vols, and the Texas Longhorns in this new look SEC. So I thought this was pretty interesting. The teams that people are jumping on the bandwagon now, this kind of further validates their path to success next season in a new look SEC.
Yeah, and let's be clear about all of this. The real winners are all of us football fans, because while these are relatively easier or harder, everybody's schedules are just better next year. And we're chock full of sexy matchups, both within the SEC and interconference. We are really 2024 gene of college football. Could be a very, very special time. All right. Coming up next here, Rivals Down South. Let's kind of stick with that easy theme and kind of think about who can maybe make some noise, maybe push for that playoff. Outside looking in. Keep it locked right here, Rivals Down South. You know, Mike, here at Rivals Down South, we talk a lot of SEC and how tough it is. And the best football's played here. However, for some teams, it's looking pretty SEC. As the Mizzou Tigers, I mean, how about it? Coming off the hottest year they've ever had, a year in which they finish, would have been a playoff team potentially, finished by beating Ohio State, 11 wins. They have all the momentum in the world. They return Luther Burden. They return Brady Cook. They had Marcus Carroll at running back to make it. Just so much positive momentum. And now, by far, the easiest schedule next year. Again, every other team in the conference, the combined record of opponent is above 500. Mizzou, 65-84. 20 games under 500. So buy Mizzou stock if you are looking for who could be that kind of fourth SEC team to make the playoff, get in at 12, 11, somewhere around there. I think Mizzou's got as good of a chance as anyone.
Right, and one thing I don't think Drink gets enough credit for, T-Bob, bringing in offensive coordinator Kirby Moore this offseason, that was a stroke of genius. Eli had called the plays his entire coaching career. So Brady Cook, who's already established, now year 2 in this system, I think he's poised to really take off. You didn't mention Theo Weiss coming back for a 6th year. So I think with Weiss and Burden, they got the potentially top two receivers in the SEC. They just signed the #1 defensive lineman in the country. I mean, there is a lot to like about the Missouri Tigers next season.
Now, Mizzou, you could still maybe quantify as a dark horse or qualify. I don't think that's the case for Ole Miss, right? We have very clearly said that Ole Miss's expectation needs to be playoff, needs to be 12-team playoff, potential real championship contender. And I would argue, like Mizzou, they're getting a pretty friendly shake here. 3rd easiest schedule in the SEC. And you're starting to see, if you look at Lane Kiffin's Twitter, you're starting to see some of the kind of mantras that he's going to look to build into this team. When you look at his hashtags, when he's talking about, like a team over self, all these, can he do it? We'll see. But at least the schedule's friendly.
Right, and this is a big reason why this is such a fascinating team, T-Bob, because no one else is really building a roster like this. Is Lane Kiffin just ahead of the curve, or is the whole thing going to a house of cards that's going to fall in? Because with Judkins leaving, clearly that had NIL implications. You're adding all these star players, not taking care of all the homegrown guys you got. I cannot wait to see how this plays out. I don't think losing Judkins is going to hurt him in the regular season. I'm thinking SEC playoff. Those type of games, those are the games they're really going to miss Judkins if they can make it that far.
Yeah. Will, I mean, but then Lane, it's so funny how dumb our brains are and how infected by social media they are. Because at first I'm like, oh my God, the Judkins loss is awful. What are they going to do? And then you see Lane tweet out catch and release, and you're like, I mean, dude, he didn't care anyway. They're fine. No big deal. Keep it moving. He is SEC Mike. He is the host of the highest rated SEC podcast on Apple. That SEC podcast, go check out him and Cousin Shane. This is Rivals Down South. Huge thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll see you tomorrow for some more college football.